Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm Dobby.
And I'm Christian.
And this is As the Ice Breaks. So as you guys already may know, I'm Dobby. This is my co-host, however, Christian. Christian, would you like to tell them a little bit about yourself?
How y'all doing? My name is Christian. I'm an artist from Fellsmere, Florida. Y'all know about that. If y'all don't know about that, look it up. I also was the greatest Sebastian River High School football player. 3 days. Coach told me to get off the field because it wasn't worth embarrassing all the other kids. I also just got a haircut, so I'm really like that.
What a humble guy this Christian, isn't he? Anyhow, so let's just start laying a basis of this show and what we are providing here on As the Ice Breaks. As most of you may know, you might have those conversations at around 3 a.m. with your friends, family, where you get really deep into it and it can be emotional at times.
Of course.
This is the type of show where we talk about literally any kind of topic that you guys can think of. And today on this show, our very first episode, we're going to be discussing movies.
Oh, man. Wish I knew more about movies to get into with, Dobby, but I'm going to try my best here.
He's not the most knowledgeable on movies, but it's okay. What he lacks in that area, I make up for. So today we're talking about movies, and I think the one that everybody's talking about right now as far as new ones that are up and coming is the Godzilla vs. Kong movie.
Of course. And
in my eyes, Christian, Godzilla wipes the floor with this guy.
There's no debate. I mean, the dude is, like I said, like we talked about this earlier off camera. I mean, it's a giant monkey. I mean, yeah, I've read up on things like this, and he's smarter than Godzilla or whatever it may be, but aside from that, there's nothing King Kong has that beats Godzilla in any...
A laser beam. Dude has a laser beam.
I mean, what does Kong have? He can climb.
He can climb. I mean, he can throw hands now. I'm not going to lie.
But I'm not going to lie. It's like fighting someone with a gun. If he has a laser beam, he's just going to shoot you from far away. What you going to do? You can't do nothing against him.
Can't touch him.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
How you going to beat him if you can't touch
him?
him?
There's no... I mean, the thing is, I wish I was more knowledgeable on these franchises themselves. Because, I mean, I know there's like a whole lore and a whole canon that goes back. And there's super fans and stands of this shit. But to me, I just feel like if I'm looking from the outside in as someone who doesn't really know either about either of these franchises, there's no choice but Godzilla.
Yeah, and I think... Have you seen the King Kong movies, the originals?
No.
You haven't?
No.
I gotta say, the James Cameron one, the original King Kong, that movie was fantastic.
I've seen parts of Skull Island.
That movie.
I've seen parts of Skull Island.
You have seen Skull Island?
I've seen parts of it.
Skull Island was okay. I think as far as the King Kong franchise is concerned, it was a good movie, but nothing tops just
the original one.
The original one with James Cameron, Jack Black. Oh yeah.
Jack Black's in that movie?
Yeah, Jack Black's in that movie.
And I gotta watch that.
No, you have to, because again, the visuals, they're on 10.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was in that movie. That's crazy.
So what are some other new movies that are coming out that you know of, Christian, that people haven't really heard of, or just interesting ones that appeal to you?
Well, I think, and then this one really appeals to most people right now, because everyone, especially all this quarantine stuff going on, the Marvel continuation, there's 2 new movies actually coming out. One was just announced as a Super Bowl commercial, is Black Widow and then Falcon Winter Soldier. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, some to that effect. And, if you ain't seen Endgame yet, what are you doing? It's tragic ending, but a great way to cap off the whole Avengers franchise saga. Real tearjerker. But now we have the origin story of Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson. And then Falcon Winter Soldier is the continuation of, if you've seen the end of Endgame, Captain America kind of hands the reins off to Falcon, and now we're going to kind of see where that plays. So both those look really good to me, and all of us over here at the studios are really big Marvel fans. So
I agree. I love the Marvel franchise as far as that goes. I think they're light years ahead of anyone else, especially with how they've been able to play those superheroes and stuff like that, and really modernize them.
Really, of course. I mean, and it takes something that's so to so many so sacred as a comic book story, which if you ever met a comic book fan or a fan of that type of genre, they are diehard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to take something like that and to make it a mainstream thing and to make it acceptable to people that are not comic fans and people who are huge comic fans and kind of bring those worlds together, I think is what makes that whole franchise so impressive.
Yeah, I'm very excited and really looking forward to those movies.
Without a doubt.
As far as recent movies, what are some recent movies that you've seen lately?
I'm not gonna lie. I've been doing a lot of throughout quarantine. I haven't really watched a lot of movies. I've been watching, I watch some stand up here and there if you would consider that a movie. Yeah. But I've been doing a lot more like playing on the game or watching new series, is there any movies that you've been watching since?
I did actually watch one of Quentin Tarantino's. I think it was one of his first films, actually. Reservoir Dogs.
I've definitely heard of it. I've never
You've
seen
heard of it, but do you know what it's about at all?
No, not at all.
Okay, so I'm just gonna give a quick rundown of that movie, basically. So it's these 6 guys, all under code names, and they're all based on colors, like Mr. Pink, Mr. Brown, etc. And they do this little bank heist, and it just goes completely wrong. And then they all meet up back at this warehouse, and they basically gotta try to figure out who set them up, who ratted. Because it just seems like it was an overblown setup from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
And it is one of his best movies, and I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it yet. I do highly, highly recommend this movie. It is a fantastic film. One of Tarantino's best, and I do have a hot take.
Okay.
I was not a fan of another very highly touted Quentin Tarantino film.
Are you going to mention that now, or are you going to wait for that a little bit longer, bro?
I think I want to mention it now.
All right, go ahead.
Pulp Fiction. Overrated. That's right. Dobby said it right here, right now. Pulp Fiction.
You know, I'm not gonna give you. I'm not gonna look super shocked by that because don't cancel me for this. But I've never seen Pulp Fiction.
Look, it's one thing to say that it's an overrated movie. It's a whole nother to say you've never seen it in general.
Like I said, Dobby. A lot of those classic movies just. I don't know, man. It's just I've always been the type where it's like you have to like convince me to sit down and watch a movie. So me and the homies argued about this all the time. There's so many movies that, and the thing is, I know I should see them. It's just I haven't. That's just really what it is. I mean, I can't say much more on that. So I would love to expand on the topic of it being a blasphemous take that you saying Pulp Fiction is overrated, but I just can't. But I'm sure the comments will do that for me. So I'm really not worried about it too much.
And I mean, as far as Tarantino goes, I feel like most of his movies, you either love that style or you hate it.
That's exactly. I talked to my mom about it, and I was telling her about is it Once Upon a Time? That's a Tarantino movie. The new I was telling her about it, and she was like, it just isn't for me. But my dad, for example, loved that movie because he's a big Tarantino fan. My mom isn't as much. You know what I'm saying? He's a very obscure director, very hard to get into. Once you get into him, it's really enjoyable. I think all his films are really good.
No, yeah, like I said, I did enjoy Reservoir Dogs, and there's a couple other Tarantino movies. We'll get more into a certain Tarantino movie as we go along here. But take us back a little bit. When you're growing up and stuff like that, and even to this day, what are some of the favorite genres that you had? As far as movies are concerned,
I think the king of me personally, and I always when I would do movie nights with the family or movie nights with the homies, whatever it was, my favorite genre was always comedies. I think they're just lighthearted, make you feel good. They're easy to watch. Everyone can get into a comedy, but right on the tails of those two are like thrillers, and then like I guess you could call them like the hood movies. Like those three have always been my favorite genres of movies. I think those those are pretty cold takes, although I think those are pretty universally loved. But what would you say some of your favorite genres are?
Well, for me personally, like growing up, comedy was always my getaway. I really hated scary movies. I was one of those kids growing up that, as far as scary movies were concerned, I couldn't watch them because I would have nightmares when I went to sleep about it. Really? So comedy was always my escape. Comedy, I mean, everybody kind of loves action movies, I guess, but I wasn't as much of a big action movie
never really could get into those. I thought they were all kind of the same.
They were, and then, comedy is kind of universal, and it grows as time goes on. Right. So I really loved comedy.
Right.
But as I got older, I started having more of appreciation for two other types of movies, too. Thrillers. Thrillers, to me, just seem so interesting all the time. The plot twists that they have, they're just really captivating. And I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but I love rom-coms. Romantic comedies. I'm a big fan of them. I'm sorry, The Notebook,
Hey,
La La Land, that's me.
I'm not judging you. Like what you like, man. I mean, everyone likes
what
they like. I can't get on you for that.
Yeah, no. So what are your, as far as in those categories and stuff, what are some of your top movies that you've watched?
I mean, and once we get into things like this, I mean, there's millions and millions of options. We're bound to forget some of them. You know what I'm saying? But I will say, and it don't matter what movie you say is your top movie, the person who there'll always be someone who disagrees with you. You know what I'm saying? My favorite movie of all time, always will be, and thank God for some of the homeboys who put me on to this movie, is Wolf of Wall Street. I think it's a longer movie. It's definitely on the longer end, but it's always so enjoyable every time you sit down to watch it. It's got a perfect mix of comedy and the dialogue, the characters, the plot itself, and the fact that it was drawn off such what could be viewed as such a boring story. It's about the stock market. And they made it so interesting and so many quotable lines. And me and the homeboys, we'll still talk about fun coupons or let 'em watch. We still quote things from that movie to this day, and we've all seen it years ago at this point.
No, look who was the lead actor, Leonardo DiCaprio.
We'll talk about him in a little bit for sure.
We'll
definitely get more into him. Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, as far as I go with my favorite movies, I lean towards movies that really either blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Or, in my opinion, were just so well written, and the storyline was really intense and good. So for me, there's a couple movies that come to mind, but mine, in my personal opinion, and I kind of put this into my best movies of all time, as well as my favorite, The Departed.
Okay.
You want to talk about like an absolute stellar cast? You got Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Wahlberg, Jack Nicholson. It's a loaded cast. Matt Damon.
Yeah.
All across the board, and then the storyline was just so good. Again, that is one of the movies I recommend to everybody because it's just an absolute banger. Do you know anything about The Departed?
No, I don't. That's once again something I've heard the name of, just haven't gotten around to seeing it.
Basically, it's just this big circle of a person who's going undercover. Leo DiCaprio, he goes undercover basically, and infiltrates this crime ring. And they're trying to figure out basically who the rat is. Mm-hmm. Matt Damon is also a cop, and he's working for the crime boss. Mm-hmm. And it's just this basic thing of who's going to catch who first and who's going to slip up first.
Okay, so it's almost it's a thriller then.
It's a thriller. Yeah.
Okay, I love thrillers, so that's definitely something.
It's a crime thriller.
Yeah. Okay, those are the best type of thrillers.
Absolutely. And then if we're going to talk about the best movies, Inception.
Yeah. Once again, another movie. But that's the type of movie that breaks boundaries in the terms of you don't even have to see it and you know exactly what it's about. Like, because it's so trippy and it's so it messed up so many people's minds when they watched it. Like I know a rough plot description of that movie and I've never even gotten near seeing it. You know what I'm saying? But I know. But no, I definitely know. And that's a Leo movie, right?
Of course.
Yeah. See. The guy just can't lose. He don't miss.
Now, I will say, keep in mind, this is very subjective because these are more movies that we've seen in our era.
Right.
Again, we're leaving out a whole big. Part of history.
You're missing out the Brandos and the what's the guy's name? The guy who played in the TV show, the Western TV show, who was really big.
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, you're missing out a lot of. They were just all before our time. That doesn't mean we aren't giving them their due respect. Or we're not giving them,
it's just subjective.
Yeah, exactly.
Our era and the movies.
And I think that's what makes movies great. You know what I'm saying? If you talk to your grandpa or your dad about it, they're gonna have totally different answers than you are.
Exactly.
But speaking of another Leo movie, just happens to be, we sound like Leo stands over here, but you can't help but just love the dude. Another great Leo movie that I would say is one of my favorites was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mentioned it earlier.
This one I did not see.
Now, do you know anything about it?
Not too much. Why don't you go ahead and fill me in on it because I don't really know too much about that.
It's really just there's almost not even a way to describe the plot of that movie. It's another longer one. It's on the longer side. That's a Tarantino. I think it's another Tarantino. That's another Tarantino, and really follows Tarantino's formula very much over here and here and here. It's just
all over the place.
Exactly a lot of plots going on at once, but it's basically the transition from the period in America where everything was Western to everything was military. So it's kind of Leo plays this really famous Western actor on this TV show called The Bounty Hunter. And all of a sudden, this whole transition comes in where everything is about military and he can't transition over and he loses all his placements. No one wants to hire him anymore. So we kind of watch the downfall of this dude. It's almost like watching the downfall of a 50s TV star. And Brad Pitt plays alongside him. And he's his stunt double.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of a free, doesn't really care about nothing. He lives in a trailer and Leo lives in a mansion. Leo's got the supermodel wife. Brad is just kind of
two opposite worlds.
Exactly, but they're best friends.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of watch as this dude kind of falls apart. He starts doing these things they call them spaghetti westerns. So they're Italian Western movies, because that's a term you would have used back then. Mm-hmm. But he's going off to, he's getting fat. He's going off to Italy to do, these Western films because they're still like a little behind the times over there.
Yeah.
But and it's weird, but it's really, really good. And then somehow Tarantino brings the Manson family into it, and like the whole Manson farm and all this, but it like ties in perfectly. And then there's like this giant fight scene at the end. It's a crazy movie, but it's definitely worth a watch.
It does definitely sound like a movie that you gotta really watch to even understand.
You definitely, and it's a movie that you gotta watch a couple times. That's the thing is it's a movie you watch 2-3 times to really catch everything in it. Yeah. Because the first time you watch it, you're just like, what the hell's going on? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no. And I mean, if we talk about our best and our favorite movies, I feel like we also have to kind of approach the subject of the worst ones and ones that we've seen that are just absolutely terrible. And I think one of the most recent universally accepted movies that absolutely just blew up at the box office was Cats.
You couldn't pay me to go see that movie. I've heard nothing but terrible things about it. I saw Idris Elba get destroyed on Twitter for that movie. People just constantly making memes about him and all types of different things. I cannot force myself to go. It's a musical style movie, right? Ain't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate musicals in general, and I know some people are gonna what, but musicals in general are not good to me. Like they're just not enjoyable for me, and the fact that it's also a terrible movie on top of that.
I mean, the thing for me is like I'm okay with musicals to some capacity. You know, not if it overtakes the entire movie and the plot. But as far as Cats was concerned, I didn't see the appeal when they were previewing it and whatnot. I saw no appeal in that movie.
It looked bad it looked bad from the trailer.
I don't understand what the hype was, and their budget and stuff like that was ridiculous, and it flopped. And people were like, "Why did this movie flop?" I mean, what was going to be successful?
No one was looking. I never saw anybody be like, "Can't wait to see Cats." Like, could you name anybody who was like, "Can't wait to see that movie"? Like, it looked bad from the beginning. You knew it was gonna be terrible. But I mean, but moving on to before because we could talk about Cats the whole episode, just how bad that movie is. I have a little bit of a lesser known movie on my worst movies list, and because we were kind of going through and talking about just terrible movies we've seen. I have to give a big shout out actually to some commentary YouTube. I can't remember who it was, but they put me. This dude reviewed this movie called Mac and Me. And that's how I know about this movie. It was set in the 80s. It was a McDonald's promotional movie.
What?
That's what it was. So, and it was really during the time, the E.T. era.
Yeah.
So E.T. was blowing up. Everyone loved E.T. Everyone loved all the actors from E.T. So McDonald's capitalized off that they might have thrown in Happy Meals, but I can't remember. But this alien comes down. And the only way he can survive is if he drinks Coke and eats McDonald's.
What?
Yeah, it's really weird, dude.
What?
And it's just bad on top of that. So it was this E.T. ripoff that McDonald's made and then sent out. It was such a bad movie. And this dude on commentary YouTube, it might have been, I think it was either Danny Gonzalez or Drew Gooden, one of those dudes. They reviewed it, and I was just they almost showed you the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it was just this terrible. I mean, terrible budget, so you could tell the CGI was really bad. The actors were terrible. And I think it was one of those Canadian imports on top of that. So it was almost completely different lingo than America when it got sent over here and everything. So it was just a terrible movie all around. Literally, and it's so obscure, but if you've seen it, it's almost like one of those ones that gets a cult following because it's so bad. But yeah, no, that's just definitely had to be on my list for one of the worst movies that I've ever seen, if you want to call it that.
Absolutely. I think another one that is also widely accepted as a pretty terrible movie was The Last Airbender.
Oh, I think that's a movie that, and it's not even just terrible, it's just kind of disrespectful to the original series. You know what I'm saying? It was. Yeah. I mean, essentially, M. Night Shyamalan isn't a bad director. I mean, he's got some heavy hitters on it. I mean, he's got Avatar. Speaking of Avatar, he's got Avatar. But Avatar: The Last Airbender. Good gosh. I mean, you took this beloved kids show.
Well, Avatar, you talking about the one with the blue people?
Yeah.
That one was James Cameron.
Oh, was that James Cameron?
That was James Cameron.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no, I don't know what that one Scorsese.
Yeah. Eddie, that threw me off. I thought that was Shyamalan the whole time. What is the Shyamalan movie that he did? What's the Shyamalan movie that's really popular?
I can't really think of it straight up.
I know, but I know he's known for the big.
He has a lot of great movies.
Great movie. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah. But no, he did this movie. You take this beloved kids show that everyone watched growing up. It was on Nick, and then it had that Korra follow up, and everyone was just it was a big part of everyone's childhood. I mean, even into adulthood, a lot of people were still watching this show.
Yeah.
And it was a huge thing when it came back on Netflix.
Oh, absolutely.
And that just showed you how big it was. And then this dude comes in and completely ruins it. Like, leaves out all these canon elements, makes this terrible movie. That's another movie you couldn't pay me to see because of just how bad it was.
No, it was terrible. And then one I did see, too, that was pretty bad, and I don't want to get into it too much, but if anyone's seen Jack and Jill, the Adam Sandler movie, just bad.
Just one of the Adam Sandler's misses. Funny. Sometimes he misses. You know,
he does. I mean, we all do.
Yeah,
we have so much of a repertoire.
Well, at this point, he's just kind of throwing whatever at the wall and hoping it sticks.
Although he did produce one of his best movies ever recently.
Oh, that is definitely one of that is the movie I missed on my favorite list. Uncut Gems was a phenomenal film.
Great movie.
And I love how we just automatically knew which movie we were talking about. Because, I mean, and me and my pals talked about this, and I think we're both in agreement here. That's his best performance of all time.
Depends.
Maybe not most memorable or most nostalgic, but just as an actor. What the guideline is to becoming an actor, that is what, you know what I'm saying? Especially as, you know, he's leaving his prime. You know, he's a little bit older in the movie world. The dude just delivered on Uncut Gems.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Also, another movie I want to talk about before we move on to the next topic, worst movies, which is one I forgot to mention earlier, was the live adaptation of Death Note. I don't know if you ever watched the original anime.
No.
Well, you know, it's a TV show. It's revered as one of the best anime of all time. It's like a crime thriller. And they did this live adaptation, this American adaptation on Netflix. It was a Netflix original. Good gosh. It's, universally agreed to be one of the worst, if not the worst live adaptations of a TV show. And they completely turned into this jock versus lame, nerd story, which it was never that in the original show.
Yeah.
Terrible writing. Just took something, once again, and it reminded me because we were talking about Avatar, took something beloved that kids grew up on and then through their teenage years and adulthood really, really enjoyed. You know, had this really nice following to it and completely turned into a monetary thing and completely wiped any sense of passion from the project.
Right.
And completely ruined it.
No, I agree. A lot of these movies, they really do that, especially when they have second films in the line. And
then we get to 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah,
that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
Fast and the Furious. I'm talking about you.
I'm also talking about Home Alone.
But anyways, what are movies without the actors too? So let's talk about actors for a second here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our favorite actors.
Yep.
So I did compile a list of my 5, and I wouldn't arrange them in any order, I would say. But these are rounding out my top 5 actors, and I'll give a little bit of insight on why they are.
Okay.
Number 1, as far as this is concerned, is Mark Wahlberg. I really grew up on Mark Wahlberg a lot. A lot of Mark Wahlberg's films I've seen. Almost all of them.
Yeah.
And he's done anything from comedy to a super serious war film.
Right.
I can't remember the name of that film.
The one where he's last guy living.
Yeah, that was The Last Survivor.
Lone Survivor. I think
Survivor.
is what it was called. It was a phenomenal movie.
Great film, and again, he does a lot. And I feel like maybe as a person, he's not the greatest person ever, but as far as just an actor is concerned,
any other people in Hollywood.
Yeah, but as an actor is concerned, I love his films and I love his work. Leonardo DiCaprio, that's probably on your list too.
Oh, he's my
Leonardo DiCaprio. I feel like for our generation and our subjective era, that's the guy.
Well, you can't beat him. He does, like we said earlier, he don't miss.
And I want to talk about best actors too. It's basically him, and then there's Johnny Depp.
Yeah, for our era, there's.
And we're solely speaking on actors, and what would actors be without actresses? As far as my top 5 list is concerned, there are some women around there. I love Anna Kendrick.
Yeah.
Anna Kendrick is one of my personal favorites.
Yeah.
I just love everything she does. Mila Kunis, another really good actor.
From TV to movies.
Yeah.
She's just, I love her in that 70s show, and I love her in that movie she did with Justin Timberlake was really good too. I think it was called Friends with Benefits or something like that.
Yeah.
But she's just the perfect. She plays the same role every time, and she's just really, really good at it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And then for me as well, the last actress I have to mention, this is for the ladies, but Emma Stone. I love Emma Stone in pretty much any movie she's in. I'm a big La La Land fan. A lot of people don't like that movie for whatever, and I don't understand why.
It was really critically acclaimed. I know a lot of the industry loved it.
But anyone I talk to personally about it, they're all like, it wasn't that great. And I was like, did you really watch the movie, though?
Well, a lot of people we hang around don't really watch movies like La La Land. I've never seen La La Land. It's probably, but I can appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah. I think it's one of the best romantic comedies there is. Everybody gets so caught up in The Notebook. Don't get me wrong. That's
I mean,
a great
they get caught up in it for a reason. I mean, it's the one.
But you know what I mean. La La Land was just as good in my opinion.
I mean, like I said, you're in that rom-com world, Dobby. I mean, I'm so far detached from that. I just know Notebook, legendary. That's number one. If it's not number one, then you're sinning.
Right, but to round out my list of my top 5 actors, I got also Paul Rudd.
Phenomenal. That's one of my favorite comedians.
And I mean, he is kind of the same guy.
Yeah.
He's a middle-aged guy, but he's such a cool person, even off camera.
He's so down to earth. I mean, you can't find a dude that's more down to earth that's in Hollywood. I mean, he's one of the good ones in Hollywood.
Yeah, and another guy who really hasn't been, I wouldn't say like nationally known lately, Andy Samberg. He was on SNL, held it down for a while.
Yeah.
No, he's a genuinely really funny guy. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Well, Brooklyn, I mean, he's on the biggest sitcom. I mean, following off the heels of The Office and Parks and Rec, he's on the next, one in line of that dynasty. Brooklyn Nine-Nine's so beloved by everyone who watches TV. Yeah. And also, he carried a lot of us through when, I was probably, 12, 13 years old when he was doing Lonely Island. And, everyone, you can remember in middle school, everyone was singing that I Just Had Sex song. Or the Dick in the Box song. You know what I'm saying? All those songs were, and that was his brainchild on SNL. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just, like you were saying, he held it down over there. Like, he made SNL funny for a while.
He did.
So, but, him and his counterparts over there, and he's, like I said, like you were saying, on his acting, we talked about this earlier, his acting resume might not be as bulky or impressive as some of the other people on this list, but just as a funny guy, feel-good guy, you can't go wrong with Andy Samberg.
And then the last guy for me is Jason Bateman, and that name might not strike a chord with a lot of people. Think Ozark, and he's done a lot more TV shows lately. He is the same person, I will say, in every role he plays.
It's almost like
but he's so good.
Yeah.
When he does do these roles, like I just love everything about the guy. I just love the swagger that he brings and so forth.
I think he was really good in that movie. He was in the movie with Ryan Reynolds. That's the guy who played Deadpool, right?
Yeah.
He was in that movie where they piss in the fountain and they switch lives. Wasn't that Jason Bateman?
Yeah, but I don't think Ryan Reynolds is not in that movie.
Yeah, it was Ryan Reynolds.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was hilarious. That's really what I remember. That's off the top of my head the one thing I can remember Jason Bateman the most from. Yeah, it was Ryan Reynolds and they piss in that fountain and they switch lives. One's real he's really greedy and selfish, and Jason Bateman's or maybe I think Ryan Reynolds is this down low loser.
Actually, I don't think I've seen that movie.
Oh, it's great. Oh, it's so funny. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's so damn funny. I mean, Ryan Reynolds is this low scumbag, nothing loser, and Jason Bateman's this businessman, and they end up pissing. They meet, and they get really drunk, and they become friends, and they end up pissing in this same. It's almost like Freaky Friday, but more vulgar.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so funny. Look, after the show, we'll look into it more.
So let's give us your top 5, and then we'll go into our closing segment.
I have a couple. I think I have more than 5 here down on my list.
Right.
But I'll give you and these are just kind of off the top of my head. If I really wanted to compile a perfect list, I'd look deeper into it. But I mean, number 1 on mine was number 2 on yours, and that's Leo.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said so many times throughout the show, and I'll say it again, he don't miss. The dude does it all. I mean, so underappreciated in the industry, but so loved by the world. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the kid he's been acting since he was young, and he's still just such a powerhouse. Yeah. Even now, I mean, he's not older. He's not old now, but he's older. And like I said, the guy is in my favorite movie of all time, 2 of my favorite movies, and now obviously he's gonna be definitely ranking in my top 5. I also love. I noticed there was a lot of comedic value or a lot of a theme of comedy within your top 5, and same thing goes for mine. One of my top 5, and I think he's very underappreciated because all he's remembered for is The Office, is Steve Carell. I think he's got. I mean. The one that sticks out the most to most people is 40-Year-Old Virgin. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. And his commitment to his role is really makes him great. That scene where he was getting his chest waxed, I don't know if you knew this, it was a real waxing session. Yeah. So to get the authentic feeling of getting waxed, he really got waxed. I mean, that's just, you can't deny his ability to really just perfect his craft. So that's why I think Steve Carell, aside from The Office, definitely deserves a spot in anybody's top 5. Another huge one for me, going off the comedy theme, was Will Ferrell.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about someone who carried SNL. I mean, carried SNL for how long, and then how many comedy movies of his are not in people's top 5? I mean, Step Brothers is another one of my favorite movies of all time. You got Talladega Nights. I mean, and then he's also got some serious movies where he's not too bad in them, actually. the dude, he did that commercial with wasn't he the one that did the commercial with Drake? When he made fun of DeMar DeRozan?
Yeah.
Like that one too. Like
DeMar, I say, Dallas.
Nice, I like it. Exactly. Like, for the dude's he's so good in everything he does. So he definitely had to make my top 5. Another one of my favorites, and he's really good. Another one of those good dudes that transitions and blurs the lines between comedy and seriousness is Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
One of my favorite childhood movies of all time is Daddy Daycare. I mean, and we talked about this, and you were like, really? But I mean, I just watched that movie. I've watched that movie a dozen times at least when I was a kid. I just loved it. I love everything about it. Mm-hmm. It's got so many quotable lines, so many memorable characters.
I mean, when I think of Eddie Murphy, like the first films that come to my mind are like Beverly Hills Cop or something.
Well,
like
I mean,
that.
and that's the thing. That's what makes him so great is that he was going off in the 80s and he was going off in the early 2000s, and the dude, I mean, aside from him just having Delirious and Raw, 2 of the biggest stand-up comedy shows of all time, the inspiration for most of the comedians we see now, he was also just such a a lighthearted dude, made you feel good when you watched his movies. That's why I always liked him so much. And the other dude that's on my list definitely has to be Will Smith.
Okay.
We want to talk about the dude who blends the lines. That's him right there. I mean, the guy has Independence Day, but he also has Bad Boys. Like, you know what I'm saying? The guy be able to do those 2 roles so perfectly is what's always made me such a fan of him. Everyone's seen almost all of his movies that you talk to. You go to anybody up in the street, they'll go, oh yeah, I've seen at least 2 to 3 of Will Smith's movies. Everyone knows who Will Smith is.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then, since we were talking about actresses, and we want to give them their flowers and give them their appreciation because we feel that they're so underappreciated in today's Hollywood.
Industry, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
One of my personal favorite actresses has to be Margot Robbie. And it's not just because of Wolf of Wall Street. It's every movie I see her in. She's just such a talented actress. I mean, aside from being, she's like everyone's heartthrob in the industry. Everyone talks about how fine Margot Robbie is. But aside from that, she's just a good actress. I mean, her accents, the way she carries herself on screen. I mean, she's just perfect in every role I've seen her in. She's always an enjoyable addition to the cast. So I definitely feel she needs to be given her flowers.
No, absolutely. And I think to close out our show, let's just give one of the best performances in our eyes that we've seen in our era. Remember, this is very subjective.
Of course. I mean,
the best performance, though, I've ever seen and heard of was Leonardo DiCaprio and again, we've talked about him this entire episode.
But you can't talk about movies without talking about Leo.
But the scene in Django where he breaks the glass on the table and he cut himself on his hand, and it was bleeding, and he kept going through the scene and did the whole scene one take.
Right.
And everybody was just absolutely shocked and bewildered that Leo was able to do that. And it was something that they recall, and they're just like, that was one of the most legendary things I've ever seen. To me, that was probably, and again, he's had so many great performances,
right.
But just that scene and hearing about that, to me, was one of the greatest performances in my eyes.
It's dedication to the craft. I mean, that's just simply what it is. You want to be the best, you have to do things like that, I would say my favorite performance, or the best performance, is Leo and Wolf. But I'll stray away from Leo in here, and I'll go with a little bit of a less known one, and I'm gonna go with Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler.
Oh wow.
A movie that my pops actually put me on to, and we watched it. What a phenomenal just unwinding. It makes you so uncomfortable throughout the movie. It makes you so, and I know most people would choose a really popular one because they have no taste in movies.
Yeah.
Kind of like the guys behind the camera. But no, Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler is definitely one of those movies that you just watch this dude fall into madness. And that's always, for some reason, really entertaining to watch on the big screen. Nothing crazy is going on in it, but this publicist who just slowly, his mind falls apart. You know what I'm saying? And was definitely one of the best performances I've ever seen. I don't know if it is the best, but like I said, I try to stray away from the really popular ones.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, guys, that's going to do it from our first episode here and As the Ice Breaks. Remember to like, comment, subscribe down below, and leave a comment and let us know what you think were your favorite movies, actors, so forth. And leave us suggestions as well on what type of topics you'd like to hear us discuss
about. Talk about anything y'all want us to talk about.
Any single thing. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Tune in next week for another episode of this as we pick a new topic, and who knows?
Could be yours.
Exactly. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, tap that bell for notifications to know when we go and drop our next video. I'm Dobby.
And I'm Christian.
And this has been As the Ice Breaks.